Sunday sees Arsenal up against Liverpool. Back-to-back big games for Arsenal. Of course, they beat Spurs 3-1 last week and take on Liverpool. This is a cracker of a game. I'm so excited to see it. Arsenal fans generally do not enjoy this fixture over the last few years. The last 4 games, I'm looking at it in front of me now. Liverpool with 2-0 wins, 4-0 wins, 3-0 wins, 3-1 victories as well. But Arsenal fans can feel optimistic about this one. Should they be tentative or should they be bullish about this? Because this is a Liverpool side that haven't been as free-flowing as previous seasons.
Well, Arsenal are riding the crest of a wave, and if you can't be bullish, you're going to be bullish, this is the time to be bullish. Your team is top of the league. We're all,
you haven't lost yet as well.
We're waxing lyrical about Man City, and Arsenal are ahead of them. So this is the time to be bullish, and you're facing Liverpool at a good time. They look vulnerable. And you don't want to oversimplify football, but this game comes down to battles. And it comes down to battles in the wide areas and battles in the middle of the park. We know how exposed Liverpool have looked in the fullbacks positions. We know how inconsistent Andy Robertson's been, combined with the fact that he's been injured as well. I've not been too impressed with Simicast this season. I think he can be got at. And Trent Alexander-Arnold's problems have been well documented, despite the fact that he scored a free kick in midweek against Rangers. So I feel like those are the positions where Arsenal can really hurt Liverpool. And despite the fact that this has not been a fixture that's been kind to Arsenal in recent years, they can go into this game with full confidence. And the fact that they've got Gabriel Jesus, who is not necessarily a false nine, but as a man who picks up those positions a little bit deeper and makes the centre-backs have to think. He's not a striker that you play up against. He's somebody that Van Dijk and Matip are going to have to make a decision. Does somebody go with him or do they sit deep? And we know that Liverpool push up and play a high line. So I think that could cause Liverpool big problems in this game, and I feel like Arsenal have got a great chance of getting a win against Liverpool for the first time in a long time.
Arsenal have got about average 70% possession so far this season. When I watched the Liverpool Rangers game, I mean the first half in particular was hectic, and that's how Liverpool generally play. In terms of control in a game like this, are Arsenal too good in possession for this Liverpool side? Because Liverpool will want to control the game by turning it into something a bit more chaotic. And against Rangers were absolutely diabolical on the ball. But that's not Arsenal. So this is just a very, very different game than what we've seen in the last few years, isn't it?
Arsenal 5 wins on the bounce at home in the Premier League, and I think that does make a difference here, because they did exactly the same thing away from home against Manchester United. Maybe the atmosphere at Old Trafford though just changed things slightly, and they got done on the counter-attack a couple of times. I think Spurs had a couple of opportunities, but largely Arsenal were quite comfortable dominating the game, and that's against, for me, a pretty solid Spurs side, at least from what we've seen so far. I think you just go for it again at home, and you like Kweku says, you ride the crest of that wave. They need to build up points in the bank early on, but they need to keep the good feeling going. I mean, Arsenal fans, I've got to credit you. Some of the best limbs we've seen in recent Premier League time. Unbelievable.
Certainly at the Emirates.
Certainly the Emirates, right? In the North London derby. And you need to keep that good feeling going. I mean, I saw Arsenal fans on Sunday, and I mean, just ear-to-ear smiles. They were absolutely in cloud nine. They're believing in what Mikel Arteta is doing. Why wouldn't you? The only way that you can get done is on the counter-attack. Now, Liverpool can play that way. They've got players like Mo Salah that can hurt you. But again, do you think, look, they'll probably score a goal. They're good enough to do that. We're going to score 2 or 3. I think you do. I think you go into this game believing 1, 2, 3, and the game is over.
I'm intrigued to see how brave Liverpool are with this one, because I think that's the default for Klopp. Yes, he has his soldiers, or has done in the past, where you've seen Milner, Wijnaldum and Henderson as that 3. Rangers was a very, very different game, but I would not be surprised if I saw that 4-2-4. And because Henderson, every time he got the ball, it was just this little dink. Núñez was already on his bike, and it pushed them back time and time again. It's a dangerous ploy because it leaves you, in trouble in terms of the midfield areas if Arsenal can get that control of the ball and are press-proof. But Liverpool, I thought what I liked in terms of the sort of forcing of his hand, again, it's against a team that just didn't really want to come out and play. But by playing 4, you have that kind of freshness that pushes back an Arsenal defence that essentially has been... Because even Ben White, he's been the cornerstone for the team. He's been playing high because they've had that control. I wonder if Liverpool, who we're not really talking about that much, are going to really, really push it that way. Do you think that's too brave?
I don't think they can employ those tactics against Arsenal because I think Arsenal are just too good on the ball. I feel like the midfielders for Arsenal will dominate the possession, and I think the biggest takeaway for Liverpool, or the biggest thing they have to concentrate on, is not being properly good in front of goal. Darwin Núñez, despite the fact he had a good performance against Rangers, he missed a lot of chances. Granted, there was a lot of good saves in that game. But these big games are predicated on the chances of your strikers. And if he's putting away those chances against Arsenal, they might not come in flurries, but if the big chance comes and he can put it away, we've seen Mo Salah explode for the first time this season, then that's how Liverpool can have a chance in this game. But beyond that, I think Arsenal clear favourites for a good reason.
They can't do the 4-2-4. They just can't.
They can.
Not if they want to win the game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Simply because I think the Tottenham fans were screaming for an extra body in midfield. Yeah. They couldn't believe Antonio Conte went there and didn't do that. And I think when you look at what Brighton did well against Liverpool, Arsenal do something very similar. De Zerbi pushing Estupiñán from left back into that midfield area to provide another body. It allowed an overlap in the right back area against Trent Alexander-Arnold. Now, let's be perfectly honest, Arsenal have been great at that. Zinchenko knows how to do it from his Manchester City days so well. If it's him, if he moves into the midfield, Granit Xhaka can push forward into the defensive line of Liverpool. You get that overload in the area of Trent Alexander-Arnold. A lot of teams have had success against Liverpool in that area. You have to have another body in midfield. You must have three.
See, so this is where it's different for me with Liverpool as opposed to Tottenham. Is Tottenham sit back, so they then let Arsenal have the ball, don't get at them, and then of course you're going to get overrun. Liverpool, the way they play, the way they counter press, even they're creating themselves that little bit of a box there. Henderson was covering for Trent a lot of the time as well when he needed to do that if they were going to play on the counter attack and Martinelli was going to go and get the ball. But that's where it's different for me, is having more bodies in the middle. Yes, it could hurt you for sure, but it also, I think, allows you to counter press and then have bodies higher up the pitch, because you said at the start those fullback areas are going to be important. And I think for Liverpool, them being careful is a dangerous ploy. I think them putting their foot down is what this squad knows.
Yeah, I do agree with that to an extent, but the biggest issue for Liverpool this season is the first phase of their press. That's where they've not been able to capitalise. That's where they've been off it this season. And if you're playing two midfield and that first phase is not on point, you leave yourself so exposed to get a battering at the Emirates. I don't think they can do it. I don't think you can go two.
But again,
midfield.
I think that comes down to the four. I think it's not about actually, this is a really interesting point. Jurgen Klopp, he kept calling it a 4-4-2.
Yeah.
And the reason he's saying that, I think, is because, okay, yes, we're pushing the opposition back as soon as we can, getting the ball in behind as quickly as we can, so the ball's down the other end of the pitch. But when they do have the ball, you're expecting Jota to work back. Firmino, if he was to play instead. Núñez will put that work rate in as well. Diaz, we know, is going to do that as well. So I just wonder. I get what you're saying. When you just put them there and they're not running, I get it. Arsenal completely overrun them.
What did Alfred say in Batman? Some people just want to watch the world burn. Go ahead. Go ahead and do that at your peril, Liverpool.
Okay. Last thing on those key sort of matchups. For me, I think we spoke about the fullbacks a little bit in terms of Ben White against Diaz, you would expect on that left-hand side. Martinelli against Trent, which I think as the years progress could be a bit of a battle. We've seen it before with Sterling and Wan-Bissaka for a little bit, and him and Trent as well. What I did want to just touch on briefly was Saliba's been so impressive. Darwin Núñez, I think if he does well, Liverpool are going to do so much better in what's been a really difficult start for them. Him up against Saliba and Gabriel, stretching the play. It's a huge couple of games for him against Arsenal and then Man City next week. How do you feel about Núñez's start and him in this game?
He hasn't had a great start, but I do think we saw sort of signs in midweek that the Liverpool players, obviously through training mainly, are starting to forge some kind of relationship with him, at least an understanding of what runs he's going to make and where. I think he has that presence, physicality. I think that will be important as well. He can stretch teams. I think it's very important if Liverpool do play with basically 7 players back, those 3 up front, that they can all actually carry the team up the pitch. An outlet ball to Diaz, who's got skills, who can carry the team up. Núñez as well with his pace and physicality, and then you know what Salah can do in behind. I think actually if they do defend deep, it will leave the likes of Trent less exposed, Tsimikas as well, and actually they could be able to spring. I know it's a totally different game plan, so all the Liverpool fans are screaming, we never play like that, we always press from the front. I know, but things aren't going well. Who knows? Jurgen Klopp might change things. That's all I'm saying. He might have a plan B. He might go for something a little bit different. But actually, even so, if Arsenal do dominate possession, you might need an outlet ball, even if pressing from the front is what you want to do in terms of your plan A. Those players, including Nunez, can help you get up there.
In a sentence, let's do some predictions. After all I've said, I think it'll be 3-1 Arsenal. What do you think?
Yeah, exactly the same, actually. I think it will be another great day at the Emirates.
2-1 Arsenal.
Thanks so much for watching ESPN on YouTube. And for more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for premium content and live streaming, subscribe to ESPN Plus.